goes from the top or the back of the sleeve, top back over like this. Right? So it goes towards the back and then wraps around to the front. So, so when you hold the sleeve and we have our vent in the back of the sleeve, when you hold the sleeve, you want to take the side of the vent that is towards the top back. Right? So right here, this side. So hold the sleeve, top of the sleeve, work your way down, the top back of the sleeve. Right, we're going to take this and we have our bias binding on there. We're going to turn the binding, everyone look up, just turn the binding inward like that. Right? So we're just going to fold it back onto itself. Okay, you can pin it. We're only doing that on one side. Right? So we're folding the binding back onto itself. We are not going to do that on the other side. I'm going to take the cuff, which we have applied the fusible interfacing to, and you'll notice that the fusible interfacing is a little bit wider than half the width of the cuff. Very purposely, because you actually wanted to extend past the fold on the cuff when you fold the cuff in half. Right? So you fuse that, then fold it and press it in half. You have notches at a 1/2 inch at both ends. So you want to take the fused side of the cuff, and I want to take that 1/2 inch notch and line it up with the folded edge of that bias that I just tucked back. Okay, so I'm going to line the bias edge up with my 1/2 inch notch mark. And again, this is the side of the cuff that has the fusible interfacing on it. And pin that folded bias at the 1/2 inch mark. And now all I'm going to do is take the raw edge of the sleeve and the raw edge of the cuff and just work my way all the way over and pin it until the bias on the other side, which I am not folding, I'm leaving it out straight, that I'm lining up with the other end, the other 1/2 inch notch mark at the other end. So I'm going to go back and just start pinning. And if you pin far enough down, if you pin like 3/4 of an inch down from the edge, you can actually leave your pins in when you stitch it, as long as they're clearing the area where you have to stitch. And so the other side winds up at that 1/2 inch notch mark. So the cuff is, the sleeve is pinned into the cuff, ready to go. Okay? And so we're going to stitch, starting at the raw edge of the cuff, a 1/2 inch all the way to the other side.
So it's almost like the bias seams are facing opposite from each other, right? When you're sewing.
Yeah, because the one that we started with, you're folding back onto itself, and the reason for that is that you want it to form like a little pleat, so that the side of the cuff that goes over the other side of the cuff has a little, the fabric sort of tucks under.
Thank you.
Now we're going to take it to the ironing board, and we're going to press that seam that we just created. We're going to press it with the seam allowance going up towards the cuff. I'm just going to finger press it here, but you should be doing that on the ironing board. Got a good crease in that. So it's applied, okay? So now we have to clean finish the cuff. And You want to take the cuff and you want to turn it back onto itself and turn it, fold it so that it's folding on in reverse of the fold that you actually have pressed into the cuff. You're folding it back right in the same spot onto itself. So it's helpful to actually put a tiny little clip in that crease that you made on both ends. And then you have an exact mark as to where to fold the cuff back onto itself. So on that notch mark, I'm folding it back onto itself. And then just line up the raw edges on the outside edge of the cuff. And now I'm going to stitch, it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we're going to stitch right along that raw edge. And I'm going to stitch right just on this side of the bias binding. All right, so I'm going to start there and just sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance straight up. And make sure that you've got this raw edge of the cuff should be hanging down from the folded edge. All right, so you've got one side of the cuff that's folded up that has the fusible on it. The other side, the raw edge, that should hang down. Let that hang down. All right. So stitch it at a 1/2 inch. You want to do the same thing on the other side. Fold it onto itself at that clip at the midpoint of the cuff. Line up the raw edges. See that? And once again, the one side of the cuff that doesn't have the fusible, that I'm letting that 1/2 inch seam allowance fall beyond the folded edge here.
And that's a 1/2 inch.
A 1/2 inch. And you want to make sure that you're stitching, you're not catching that bias piping or placket. So when you stitch it, you want to make sure that this is free. You don't want to catch that, all right, by mistake. All right, you all see that? You don't want to catch that by mistake. All right, so once you have the two sides of the cuff closed, go in and trim that corner out. Can you, in my box here, is that wooden chopstick on the top somewhere? Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Okay, clip the corners. Turn it. And after you turn it, then take your stick and poke through the corner. And so we're almost there. All right, nice clean cuff. Right? All right, so now to finish it, I want to take this loose edge and fold it over the seam allowance, just like that. Fold it over the seam allowance, and then fold it onto itself. All right. Fold the raw edge over, and then over. Pin it. Same thing on the other side. The raw edge, fold it over the seam allowance, and then over this side. See that? Again, raw edge, fold it over the seam allowance, and then fold the two sides of the cuff together. Okay, now the rest of this raw edge, what you want to do, if you remember when we did the waistband on the skirt, this is the 1/2 inch seam allowance on that raw edge, and you want to fold that up, but you want to fold it up slightly under a 1/2 inch, so that the folded edge that you're folding up just comes down slightly lower than the stitch line where you joined the sleeve to the cuff. So if you fold it up just a little less than a half, it will extend slightly past that stitch line